What's happening, everybody, on this Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025? My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. It is Liberation Day in America. Liberation Day in America, as Donald Trump imposes new tariffs on a whole slew of different countries, as a whole bunch of other countries say they will not tariff the United States. So it turns out we are actually starting to do something with the power that we have. What a thought. What a conundrum. What a coinkydink. It turns out there's no point in being the world's only superpower left if we're not going to use it. Also, we're going to go over all the election results from last night. Everyone needs to breathe. Everybody needs to just take a breath, sit down, work your pressure points, a little woosah. Everybody needs to chill out. And we're going to go over exactly why. I know many people think that the sky is falling. It actually isn't, because it hasn't. We're gonna get to that throughout the day today. Also, a federal judge has dropped all charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, which will, I think, spark quite the battle here in the capital of the world, New York City. Also, mass layoffs going on at Health and Human Services. The Trump administration so far has deported more than 100,000 people. We're going to get into all of that good stuff throughout the day, and we're going to talk about some crazy people, because there are certainly a whole lot of crazies out there. Some guy on The View who, look, I'm just going to say it, he looks like Sherman Klump. He does. He looks like the Nutty Professor. I got to be honest. It's not me. It's not a race thing. It's just he resembles Eddie Murphy in the Nutty Professor. Love the movie. Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh wow! Wait a minute. Do I have George Santos in my X chat right now? I think I do. I think I've got George Santos watching the show. What up, big guy? How are you? Very good stuff. Yes, I do have George Santos in here. Good stuff. What's up, Marissa? Teacup, how are you? Carrie Ann, what's happening? All the good stuff. Let's pop the Rumble chat up onto the screen right now. Boom, boom, boom. Let's pop that Rumble chat up on the screen. George watching me glow. It's the new lights. It's the new lights. Shout out to everybody watching for the first time. Now that we've got the all-day stream going, Messianic Mick. Yes, we're gonna go over that at the end of the show. A woman ran through an airport terminal naked, and we're gonna play a little game called Name That Airline. I have a feeling. You guys are going to be able to guess which airline it is. George wants to know if I ever use those golf clubs. Yes, I do it. I use them all the time on people who bother me. Let's jump right in, because we got to talk about this, because everyone is losing their mind over the election last night. Obviously, special elections going on in the state of Florida, special elections going on in the state of Wisconsin. The GOP was able to pick up 2 House seats, hold on to their new House seats. This is what I want everyone to understand. Hold on to the 2 seats that they had. Now, I want to be very clear. There was a drop-off in Republican turnout. No doubt. No doubt. There are many reasons for this. One reason being for the drop-off in turnout in the state of Florida is candidate quality, something that Republicans have, for some unknown reason, chosen not to focus on. Matt Gaetz, Tim Walz, incredibly popular with the Republican base in the state of Florida, most notably Matt Gaetz there up in the Panhandle on the Floribama coast over there, the Pensacola area, incredibly popular among Republicans. Obviously, you're going to see a decline. Now, let's move over to Wisconsin. Special election for the Supreme Court. We lost. It wasn't close. We lost by 10 points. 250,000 votes. Some people aren't going to like this. Some people aren't going to like this, but it turns out sometimes you lose elections. If you're out there thinking that every election Republicans lose every time, from school board right the way up, every single time is voter fraud, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It's just not true, okay? If you think George Soros is getting involved in your local city council race in a small town in Kansas, I'm sorry, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. George Soros does not know what's happening in your school board race. It's just not happening. The Open Society Foundation is doing a hell of a lot of other things. Also in Wisconsin, voter ID, enshrined in the Wisconsin Constitution. Now, Wisconsin has had voter ID since 2011 as a law, but laws can be quickly overturned by whomever takes control of the state house. What's important about it is that now the only way it can be removed is through a secondary ballot initiative. That would have to happen in a midterm, in a special election, in a presidential race. That being enshrined into law. What am I telling you? What am I telling you? I'm telling you that after all of that, after all Elon going out and saying the world is going to end if we don't win it, after Democrats gaslighting their voters, saying they had a chance in New York 1, in Florida 1, in Florida 6, after all that millions and millions and millions of dollars spent, do you know what changed? Nothing. The Wisconsin Supreme Court was always liberal. They always had voter ID. Florida 1 was Republican. Florida 6 was Republican. Both stayed Republican. So for all the people out there telling you that the earth is ending, nothing changed. Nothing changed. Democrats will hang their hat on the fact that they won the Supreme Court race, and we will hang our hat on the fact that we won 3 out of the 4 most important elections in that special election. Now, with that being said, anyone, I don't care who it is, my friends, my enemies, political commentators, activists, your mother, I don't care who it is, anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen in a special election is lying to you. Okay? There are like 2,000 things that could happen in a special election, particularly in a special election, not on election day, in a quarter term. I don't care who you are, okay? No one has any idea what's going to happen. Republicans were able to win the Florida seats by double digits. There was a significant drop-off. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's because 90% of the people who vote in elections aren't watching shows like this one. 90% of the people who vote on election day are not watching this show. Special elections comes down to particular issues and those passionate about said issue. Doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't matter who's on the ballot. Everyone under the sun, everyone under the sun is going to talk about how this is some benchmark for whatever policy prescription they plan to put forth. Democrats will say the loss in the Supreme Court race is a rebuke of Elon Musk and Doge. They'll say MAGA is over. The sycophants on the right will say, guys, it didn't matter in the first place. You get in, you go for the win, you don't pick it up, you move on. There are going to be more races in 2025. I'm talking to you, New Jersey. I'm talking to you, Virginia. It's time to get active. Yes, turnout was down. Yes, these are things we need to focus on. 100%. But these are things we should be focused on whether or not a special election is happening. Voter turnout is something that needs to happen in every election, regardless of off-year, regardless of midterm, regardless of special, regardless of presidential race, okay? And that's going to depend on a lot of you. Getting out there, knocking on doors. I love Scott Presler to death. He's one of my best friends. It's entirely possible he'll be my boss very soon. One man can't win a state. One man can't win a state freezing his ass off in Green Bay, okay? It takes a collective. It takes all of us coming together and doing what needs to be done. So for everyone out there who thinks that the world is ending and the midterms are going to be a blowout, stop, breathe, switch to decaf, and let's keep chugging forward, okay? Because the more we look back, the less advantage we have in the future. And now why do I say that? Kevin, why do you say that? Why are you the eternal optimist? First off, anybody who actually knows me knows I am definitely not. I am the Murphy's Law guy. What will go wrong? Well, what can go wrong will go wrong. Believe me, if you're involved in any of our local elections here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What can go wrong will go wrong. What I'm saying is that this ought to be a wake-up call for us. For the people who want to be involved, for the people who want change. Politics is not a spectator sport. It's a participation sport. You can't be a player unless you're on the field. I can give you as many superlatives as you want. If you don't like what happened in Florida 1, if you don't like what happened in Florida 6, if you don't like what happened in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, then go outside and knock on doors. Don't like your current congressman? Fine. Go find someone in your area you do like. I guarantee you there's one. I guarantee you you've got school board races coming up that you could get involved in. If you wait for somebody else to do it, we're going to lose. That's it. That's it, and that's all. In the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I've got to say about that. Guys, we'll be back in 1 second before this message from Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, join the parallel economy today by heading on over to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. While this is definitely not financial advice for the lawyers out there, I personally believe everyone should have some of their money socked away in certified deposits, CDs, as they're known, locking those interest rates today. Guys, go to oldglorybank.com. That's own.oldglorybank.com. So, today is Liberation Day in America. Nobody really knew what the hell that meant until we started to see it. It turns out over the course of the last 4 days, multiple countries, including Israel, including Vietnam, including Canada, well, today Canada and Mexico, have all said they will not be replacing reciprocal tariffs on American-made goods. Let's go. Mexico, this from Reuters, of all places, will not enter into a tariff tit-for-tat with the United States. Mexican president, communist, Claudia Sheinbaum, said on Wednesday that Mexico does not plan to impose tit-for-tat tariffs with the United States ahead of Donald Trump's plans to impose new tariffs. Sheinbaum added that Mexico will, on Thursday, announce a comprehensive program, not a tit-for-tat on tariffs. What the hell does that mean? Well, I'm sure ambiguity among socialists when it comes to economics is not something out of the realm of possibility. But Canada is also ready for this as well. They are embracing, I should say, for the fallout of Donald Trump's tariff plans, with economists warning of spiking grocery prices, major job losses, and potential recession if the U.S. tariffs take into effect. Which, I gotta be clear, economists, the same economists that told you in the year 2000 to buy, pets.com. Remember that? The same economist that said, guys, Tesla in 2004, they don't have it. Jim Cramer. Don't buy Tesla. They're over leveraged. The same people who told you there's no housing bubble. There's going to be no housing market crash. The fact that 6% of people have defaulted on their mortgage and we've invested basically all of our money into subprime mortgage bonds. No, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. The same economist that went to the White House and asked the President of the United States for your money to bail them out when they gambled with your retirement, those people, right. All those economists like Paul Krugman of the New York Times, who has spent 30 years being wrong, are saying that the end is nigh. The United States is Canada's biggest trading partner, accounting for nearly 2/3 of Canadian imports, receiving 70% of its exports. But under Trump's new Liberation Day tariffs, the 25% tariff on Canadian goods and 10% on energy, Ottawa now faces an economic gut punch that could cripple across the province's industries and its national election. I'm pretty sure that's the point. See, tariffs can be used for multiple things, multiple reasons for multiple goods. I think a lot of them tend to be threats in order to get many of these countries to do exactly what we want them to do. I think, in at least the case of Canada, Donald Trump is imposing these tariffs in order to hurt the Canadian economy to get how do you say his name? Poilievre? Pierre Poilievre. That might be one of the most French names I've ever heard in my life. To get him elected. The economy crashes in Canada. The Liberal Party, after being in power for 13 years, gets booted out of office. Pierre Poilievre gets elected. We begin to get some sort of populism in Canada. Or, as we've seen, possibly, you never know, foreign companies could begin building factories in the United States, driving up the wages of the people at the very bottom. What a thought. Foreign companies come over, they need American workers to fill their American factories. But there's not enough American workers, you say, Kevin. I promise you, there's enough American workers if you raise the pay. Basic Economics 101. Now, obviously, I'm not an economist for the New York Times like Paul Krugman, who's once again been wrong for the last 30 years. But, I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I understand a little bit of economics. It turns out when there are more jobs than people, wages go up. I'm not sure why this is complicated for many people to understand. Of course, Donald Trump on Liberation Day released a video that only the White House could really release. Here that is.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for the American customers.
Project Stargate.
It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
This is the automobile industry, and now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to make these bigger investments.
It's another example of the Trump effect.
GE Aerospace announcing a nearly $1 billion investment into American manufacturing.
Eli Lilly announcing plans to expand its manufacturing here in the United States.
$27 billion additional spend, bringing our total to more than $50 billion.
The money's rolling in, and this is in the past 60 some odd days, Charles.
These are deep-pocketed folks who want to have a relationship, and it's just smart moves.
We are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. Today, we are investing $20 billion.
Foreign leaders from around the world, investors from Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Main Street have confidence again in our economy and our markets and in President Trump.
The Trump effect this morning, a string of massive wins for American manufacturing. The numbers speak for themselves. Wisconsin-based Clarios is putting up $6 billion to expand its American operation. And what's driving these decisions? Well, President Trump's aggressive Made in America policies and his commitment to bringing industry back to American soil. This is exactly what Trump promised. America First is back.
Now, why did I show you that long video? Because if you noticed something, some little nugget that was missing from that video. We saw companies from South Korea and Japan. We saw Canadian companies. We saw American companies reinvesting in America. We saw European countries agreeing to make some of their automobiles in America. One thing you did not see were companies from, as some might say, China. And why is that? Because amid the growing trade war, this according to WatcherGuru.com, China has begun restricting its companies from investing in the United States. China has taken bold steps restricting local companies, including both small and multinational corporations, from investing in the United States. The restrictions come ahead of Liberation Day, where Trump claimed the United States will dictate and dominate all global trade wars. The Xi Jinping or as I call him, the Winnie the Pooh, administration pulled the unexpected move on Trump to leverage potential trade negotiations with the White House. The development could make China take the upper hand, as the United States will lose out on massive investments in the homeland. You're right. 1,000%. 100%. I don't know why I went in that order. 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000%. You're right. If China pulls its companies out of the United States, there will be short-term pain. There will be some negative to the positive. The difference is that America and China are the people having the trade wars right now. These ancillary trade wars between Canada and the United States and the EU and Mexico and Vietnam and Israel and any country other than China almost doesn't matter. Because China doesn't think in terms of news cycles the way we do here in the United States. They think in terms of decades. And finally, we have a president who's not trying to win the news cycle, but trying to win the country back. About long-term investment, planting trees that he will never lay under. That is what business does. You don't put your money into a 401k because it's going to benefit you now. You put your money in a 401k because it's going to benefit you in the future. That's what President Trump is doing with many of these companies coming back. Let China take their companies out. Go right ahead. Then we won't take any Chinese goods. You're right. Maybe you won't get to go to the Dollar Tree. Maybe you won't get to go to Dollar General and buy more brightly colored plastic crap for your home. You're right. The average American household, according to U.S. News and World Report, has 320,000 items in it. You're right. Maybe you won't get to go to Hobby Lobby and just piss all your money away on things you don't need. Absolutely true. But if the items in your home went from 320,000 to 275,000, but some of them were actually made in America, do you think you'd really notice? Do you think you'd really notice? I mean, how many wicker baskets made by Chinese slaves do you need? Do you have to go to Target once a week to buy, I don't know? I mean, seriously, look, we've gotten to a point in our country where it is almost impossible to purchase things made solely in America. And it's because since the reopening of China, thanks Richard Nixon, they have slowly but surely taken little bit by little bit by little bit. And that's not even including the American farmland. That's not even including the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure everything that happened during COVID was absolute crap. But imagine something like that actually happening and China shutting down the plants that made all the PPE, that made all the gowns, that made all the stuff that doctors actually need. It's not out of the realm. And they could do it if they wanted to. It's time for us to begin reinvesting in this country. And reinvestment means there's going to be some short-term pain for long-term sustainability. And anyone telling you otherwise either doesn't understand how to build wealth for the future or is purposefully lying to you. Or you're watching MSNBC. Not here to sugarcoat things. I'm here to tell you the way things actually go. Shut down Walmart and bring back local grocery stores. All right? Not bad. Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. JV, thank you so much for the Rumble Rant. R-Star, thank you so much for the Rumble Rant. That's a great segue into this one. Guys, head on over to LFATV.us. That's LFATV.us. That's everything you need for LFA TV. All of the shows are posted on there. Check out Jeremy's store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming monthly donors over here at LFA. That's how we keep the lights on. That's how we keep the lights on over here, and we can't do it without your support. Obviously, we always appreciate your Rumble rants. That goes into keeping us all fed, fat, and happy. So we always thank you guys for that. We thank you guys for that. Head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. So let's dive back into more domestic policy. Let's dive back into that because it turns out Mayor Eric Adams will escape charges for his corruption with the Turkish government. Here was the breaking news on that.
News right now, courtesy of the Associated Press, which is just reporting that a federal judge has dismissed the case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, that corruption case. This news coming down earlier on today. The judge, however, did deny prosecutors the ability to potentially bring the criminal case back after the mayoral election. The judge's order to dismiss the case, quote, with prejudice, spares the mayor from having to govern in a way that pleases President Trump or potentially risks having the Republicans' Justice Department revive the charges. Saying, quote, here, in light of the DOJ's rationales, dismissing the case without prejudice would create the unavoidable perception that the mayor's freedom depends on his ability to carry out the immigration enforcement priorities of the administration, and that he might be more beholden to the demands of the federal government than to the wishes of his own constituents. That, again, is what the judge in this case wrote. Going on, to be clear, the court again emphasizes that it does not express any opinion as to the merits of the case or whether the prosecution of Mayor Adams should move forward. The judge acknowledged that his power in the situation was limited, writing that courts cannot force the Department of Justice to prosecute a defendant, saying that is by design. In our constitutional system of separations of powers, a court's role in a criminal case is to preside over the matter, not to decide whether the defendant should be prosecuted. That decision came just days after Adams' attorney urged the judge to issue a ruling in the case, noting that Adams had a busy re-election campaign ahead and was nearing a deadline to submit petitions to get on the city's primary ballot. It follows a legal drama that roiled the Justice Department, created a turmoil in City Hall, and left Adams' mayoralty hanging by a thread amid questions about his political independence and ability to govern. Several prosecutors in New York and Washington resigned rather than carry out the Justice Department's directive to drop the case against Adams. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul, a fellow Democrat, pondered whether to remove Adams from office.
How dumb would you feel if you were a federal attorney and you fought and you resigned over not bringing a case that a judge eventually dismisses? You did nothing. My favorite part of the whole Eric Adams saga so far, and I want to be clear. Look, he got upgraded plane tickets to Budapest. Okay. Like, of all the things wrong with my city right now, that's just not, I don't care. Like, not that I don't care. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't give favors. I understand all that. But, like, the roving bands of illegal immigrants, the fact that nobody can build in New York, the fact that nobody can afford to live in New York, these are the things that actually bother me. Not this little tit for tat about upgraded plane tickets. But now the questions can go away and new questions can be added, because has Mayor Eric Adams been smeared, or I don't know, smeared, has Mayor Eric Adams' credibility been destroyed to a point that he will not survive a Democratic primary? I still believe yes. I believe he is so hated by the left for not being progressive enough, and now has upset the moderates for his alleged corruption, that he still will not survive the Democratic primary. So who will we be with? Who will we be left with in that Democratic primary? Could it be Governor Grabass, Andrew Cuomo? Very possibly. Could it be Zoltan? whose mother is an insane Marxist who teaches at Columbia. Zoltan. Could it be Jessica Ramos, a person none of you have ever heard of, because she's one of the most insufferable human beings who has ever lived? You think Jasmine Crockett is bad? Imagine Jasmine Crockett but dumber. Then you get Jessica Ramos. Speaking of Jasmine Crockett, I want to play you this clip from a House Oversight hearing the other day where Jasmine Crockett got absolutely put in her place by California Republican Darrell Issa. They were talking about whether or not they were going to impeach judges for violating the law, well, violating their ethics, one should say, and just ruling against President Trump because they don't like him. Jasmine Crockett went on us. She took a stance. And she let everybody know that impeaching judges over political disagreements is a threat to our Constitution, our basic rule of law, and democratic norms. And then Darrell Issa reminded everyone that 10 minutes ago she was saying something very different.
Crockett.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the speaker for admitting openly on the record that it is unconstitutional. But the concerns that I have are around the fact that we are sitting here pretending as if we all are looking out for the Constitution, yet we are coming from completely different angles. So let me go to Professor Shah. To be clear, which branch of government is responsible for interpreting what is and what is not legal?
Well, the Supreme Court, the Article 3 judicial branch has the final word.
So the judiciary is who it is. So it's not the legislators.
You know, I'd say every branch has an obligation to interpret the Constitution. The final word comes from the courts.
From the courts. It's not the former speakers. It's not everyday people. It's not the president. I just wanted to make sure that we understood who it was that was responsible. And what is so frustrating for so many of the American people, the ones that are watching right now and otherwise, and the reason that they're outraged and scared is because what we see right now is a diminishing of all these institutions. Right now, we have a legislative branch that has decided that it intentionally would disregard their duties. They are not checking the president whatsoever. The only check that the American people have had thus far has been from the judiciary. And the judiciary isn't pulling this out of the sky. In fact, they are coming from basic reading of like the plain language of the Constitution for all of those that are constitutionalists when we start talking about things such as what birthright citizenship is. But one of the things that I want to make sure that I get to, because there are deeper implications if we go down this rabbit hole. Imagine the type of world where the president does whatever he wants to and no one can rein him in. It's a world that right now many people are afraid of. Let me put it this way. If Joe Biden would have done an executive order for abortion, despite what the Supreme Court said, that would have been a problem. Imagine if the state of Colorado kept Trump off the ballot and other states follow suit. That would have been a problem. Or imagine if Jack Smith ignored Eileen Cannon and with the help of an activist judge decided that he was going to prosecute the sitting president anyway.
We're going to skip forward a little bit because nobody really wants to hear her.
But I'll take my own time. I'll recognize myself. And I'm going to note that when Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as we know her, filed articles of impeachment on Justice Thomas and Alito, Ms. Crockett was one of the co-sponsors along with Mr. Cohen, both members of this committee. It does seem interesting that when the shoe is on the other foot, everyone is self-righteous. And I think this is a good example. For the last 3 hours, I have had to listen to one side talking about impeachment as though it was the nature of this hearing. It is not. I keep looking at my friend, the late Henry Hyde, and remember that although he led the impeachment when it was necessary, he did so only during that time and then never mentioned it again in hearings. In fact, he was...
So it turns out, despite all her blustering and all her nonsense about how wrong it would be to impeach a judge, she was a co-sponsor of the legislation to impeach Justice Alito because his wife hung a flag. These people have no morals. They have no ethics. They have nothing. All they have is raw power. And that's probably why the more people hear of them, the less people like them. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Before we do, Mike Lindell.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD, for up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. Guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're sharing the video out all over the place. Once again, everybody, we do appreciate the Rumble Rants over here at LFA TV. That's how we keep things rocking and rolling. I want to say hello to everybody. So who's ready to make fun of Cory Booker? Because it is a pastime of mine to make fun of the man who promised not to leave the city of Newark until he fixed it. Spoiler alert, don't go to Newark. It still isn't fixed. Well, Senator Spartacus, Senator, I'm not quite sure how he once dated Rosario Dawson, Senator Mr. Potato Head, decided that he was going to Sagan McGroin. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Senator Cory Booker decided that he was going to talk for 25 consecutive hours. Now, a couple little things about this. Now, he did not talk for 25 consecutive hours. As a matter of fact, at one point, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut asked him a question that had 67 parts to it, where he was able to take a break, bathroom break, all that sort of stuff. But Cory Booker did in fact, over the course of the last 2 days, have the longest floor speech in the history of the Senate, beating Strom Thurmond's filibuster of the 1965 Civil Rights Act. Of the Voting Rights Act, I believe it was. He did do that. And no one cares. Could you imagine talking for 25 hours and having no one care? No one. Not even a little bit. Not a single person cared. How many people cared? Not one. Nobody cared. The best part about it was listening to Scott Jennings make fun of him.
It is a feat of longevity, I'm not sure what the point of it is. You know, he didn't stop any legislation. He didn't hold up any nominations. He said it was a moral moment. So I guess, you know, as a Republican, I infer that he thinks half the country is immoral. And that kind of messaging to me is exactly what's been plaguing the Democrats for the last, certainly in the last election, in the last several months, is this idea that this hatefulness towards your fellow American just because they chose a different party or voted a different way. I mean, our own Harry Enton reported this morning that congressional Democrats have a 21% approval rating. So in some respects, there's nowhere to go but up. And Cory Booker, I think, is trying to fill a vacuum. There's no real leadership nationally of the Democratic Party. Obviously, they don't have any confidence in Schumer. They've had a lot of radical voices out there who are trying to take control of the party. So maybe this was an attempt by him to try to, wrest control of at least the the spiritual leadership of the National Party. I don't know if it'll work.
This is a rebuke.
As Scott Jennings says there, the Democrats can't get any lower than they currently are. Well, what do you mean by that, Kev? How could that be? Well, it turns out congressional Democrats have a 21% approval rating. More people approve of cancer than congressional Democrats right now. Here's Harry Enton from CNN.
Holy Toledo. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove, 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling. You think these numbers are bad? Let's go to this side of the screen. We'll look how Democratic voters feel. Get this. The plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49%, and just 40% approve. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Oh, my goodness gracious, you just can't get worse than these numbers.
And this is the number right here really driving all of this. If Democratic voters have turned on Democrats in Congress and the Democratic Party, that's what puts the numbers at historic lows. What is it they want to be seeing, these voters?
What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. They don't like what's coming out of some of those Senate Democrats like Chuck Schumer, because take a look at the direction of the party. Democratic voters on Democrats in Congress doing too little to oppose Donald Trump. Look at this. 77% should stay principled, even if it means nothing gets done in Washington, D.C. 65%. And this 65% is such a difference from where we were in 2017 at this point, when just 33% of Democrats say they should stay principled, compared to 59% who said they want to compromise. Democrats do not want compromise at this point. They want a fighter. They want to go into the ring like Muhammad Ali did against Sonny Liston. They want to take down the Republicans. They do not want this compromise anymore. They want to be more like Republicans, get up to that stage and fight. And right now they feel like their leaders in Congress are simply put not doing so. And that is why their approval rating for congressional Democrats is at an all-time low, even among Democrats with more disapproving than approving. Yeah.
I will say Harry Enton over at CNN, quite animated. I, as somebody who can get a bit animated, I do appreciate him bobbing up and down like that. I do appreciate it. But why do congressional Democrats have a 21% approval rating? What could it be? What could it be that they're doing? Well, could it be that they aren't doing enough to oppose Donald Trump? Possibly. That's absolutely true. If I were a Democrat right now, I would feel very bewildered by the fact that there doesn't seem to be any fight in any of them. And the ones they are putting out there, like Jasmine Crockett, are making people look increasingly dumber and dumber. Or could it be some of their MSNBC contributors who look like Sherman Klump have the audacity to say, look, guys, even if these people are gang members, I don't want them deported anyway.
About their status. And just to slightly push back on Mark, even if you tell me and you prove that they're gang members, I'm not so sure that I'm okay with them being sent off to be tortured in a foreign country, but I'll leave that aside.
Sherman. That's all I can think about when I see this guy. So it turns out even if they are gang members, Sherman Klump doesn't want them deported. What, bro? This is also the same man who went on The View and said one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard a person say. I hope you're all sitting down.
One of my premises for the book is that every law passed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act should be presumptively unconstitutional, right? But because before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we were functionally an apartheid country. Yeah. Not everybody who lived here could vote here. Yeah. So why should I give about some law that some old white man passed in the 1920s, like the Immigration and Nationality Act, when they passed our fundamental immigration?
You want every law before 1965 repealed? All right. Let's break this down here. The 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, you want repealed? How about Loving v. Virginia? The one that said that interracial marriage was constitutional. You want to get rid of that one too? How about Social Security and Medicare? You see, Democrats, and that's a leading contributor on MSNBC. He used to be on Joy Reid's show all the time before she got shit canned for having less ratings than this show. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you guys have an unbelievably low approval rating. Or maybe it's because people know you're just lying to them. Here was the former governor of Wisconsin, because it turns out one Scott slapping Abby Phillips around on CNN wasn't enough. They had to go find another Scott to do it. Here was Scott Walker on CNN just calling Democrats out for just making things up.
I'm going to go back to Elon Musk for a second, because, I mean, it is true that he spent $20 million on affiliated groups that were involved in this race. Is it a risk for Republicans to put all their eggs in that basket? Not only did he spend the money, he came to the state. Right. He came to the state. He talked about cutting Medicaid, Social Security through DOGE, bringing those issues up.
Actually, he never talked. He explicitly said in Green Bay that he would not cut Social Security.
Well,
that's exactly what he said.
Talked at his rallies.
No, other people said about that, but I was there. I watched him. Okay. He did not say he was going to cut Medicaid.
Other people at his rallies who work for DOGE, who work for Elon Musk's organization, talked about those issues.
No, I was at the rally. Not a one of them said that. That's what protesters said, but nobody there actually said that.
Do you think that there are risks here?
There are. If people believe the lies that people are saying about that. But that's not at all what they said. If people believe that Medicaid and Medicare is going to be touched, that's just a flat, outright lie. What he talked about are people who are over 120 years old, who clearly are not alive.
Well, the reason I brought it up is
Social Security or Medicare.
Okay, well,
that's totally wrong. I think
just to sort this out, the reason I brought this up is because the claim here is that there's massive, widespread fraud, and that's all they're addressing. That's obviously a disputed claim, because it's not true that 120-year-old people are getting Social Security checks. The checks stop at a certain point automatically, because those checks and balances
but those Social Security numbers get counted for various parts of the federal government. So they don't get a benefit directly to those people, but they count for money that gets allocated to different departments in their budget. And they shouldn't be. If somebody is no longer alive, they shouldn't be able to count that.
I guess my fundamental question was, what are the risks here of Elon dabbling in elections for Republicans going forward?
Well, again, I think in the end, he's going to have to continue to make the case. Part of the reason why, when we talked about our recall, what flipped things for us early on in that recall process, Time Magazine called me Dead Man Walker. And the reason was because all the narratives coming out from the press, coming out from the left, were about all these horrible, egregious things. Once we started to give examples of things we were actually doing, not the things the press said, not the things that our opponents said, but the things that we were actually doing, when we ended up going before the voters in the final election in the recall, we actually won by more votes than we did. So I think that what's paramount for him or anyone else aligned with him is keep giving actual examples of what they're doing. Set aside things like Social Security and make it abundantly clear that that's not being touched. But if there's waste, fraud, or abuse, spell it out, make the case, and bring it to the voters.
Make the case, because guess what, guys? Spoiler alert. You know, you can just get direct deposit. And if your relative dies, if your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle dies, just don't tell the government. Checks will keep coming. Eventually you'll get caught, no doubt. Eventually you'll get caught. But I'm sure you can get away with it for a couple months. You mean to tell me you couldn't benefit from an extra $3,000 a month? And moreover, the waste, fraud, and abuse coming out of the Social Security Administration is not even necessarily the people on there that are 120 years old or the people who have died and are still receiving payments. It's the people who, it's not everyone, so chill, Patriot Takes. I know you're going to clip this shit. It's the people who are lying about being on Social Security disability when really they're just really lazy. Everyone knows that happens. It's not a secret. It's not like I'm pulling it out of thin air. Everybody knows that happens. The people who could be working but are choosing not to. Now look, if you're hurt, if you're genuinely hurt, I got no problem with it. None whatsoever. People get hurt. These things happen. My problem is the people that are lying about it. I know 4 people off the top of my head who are on Social Security disability. And there's no reason for them to be on it. They're just lazy. I'm sure you know some as well. Well, guys, I promised you that we would play a little game at the end of the show today, and we are absolutely going to do that. Before we do that, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. If you guys really want to help out this show and all the activism we do here, guys, go to the top of the page, click that donate button, and you will get brought over to the Loud Majority Locals chat where you guys can become monthly donors. Look, I hate asking for it. I really, really don't. You know, this is the worst part of any of this, but we can't do it without your help. I really can't do it without your help, guys. So, guys, if you wouldn't mind heading on over to loudmajorityusa.com, click that donate button at the top, or check out the shop. Check out all the good stuff we've got over here, all the good stuff. Of course, anybody who gets anything from the store today will get a free Loud Majority decal in the mail. I'm going to throw the donate thing right in the chat if I'm allowed to. Boom, there it is. Real quick, so I told you guys we were going to have some fun at the end of the show today, and we're gonna. So, a woman, a very large woman, a very well-fed woman, decided she was going to be very upset at the airport and decided to take all of her clothes off. And my question to each and every one of you is, what airline do you think it is? Here she is, naked. You know what? I'm going to put that on loop real quick. That's a little bit fun. What airline do you think it is? Let's see it again. Naked woman takes all of her clothes off at the airport.
It's fine. Stop recording.
What airline do we think it is? It amazes me how many of you got it right. Oh, Will Sting is... Oh, yeah, you know what? I'll put it over here. As we close out the show, I'll move it over. You're all right. It's Spirit Airlines. That shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. Guys, I will be back at 4 p.m. today. I'm covering for Pete Santilli, so I'll catch you guys then. Until 4 p.m., everybody. Stay loud.